This special meeting of the Romulus Board of Education is called to order at 9:30 a.m. Mr. Secretary, could we please have roll call?
Ms. Bowles?
Here.
Mrs. Kraut?
Here.
Mrs. Thunderberg? Mrs. Buckley?
Here.
Mrs. Beard?
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Here.
Mr. Theed is here.
Thank you. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Oops. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. The chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
And moved by Ms. Buckley, supported by Ms. Kraut. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Excuse me. Good morning. On behalf of the Romulus Board of Education, I would like to welcome Jennifer Martin back to Romulus.
Good morning.
Ms. Martin is currently Associate Superintendent at Ypsilanti Schools. I will take a few minutes to describe our format for this morning. The interview may take up to 30 minutes. There will be an opportunity for candidates to make a closing statement. Our MASB representative will be our timekeeper and will keep us aware of the time remaining. Superintendent interview feedback forms are available, and question cards are available for the audience to complete and are located on the table in the back of the room. The question cards will be picked up during the interview, and please give the completed feedback forms to the board secretary or Ms. Miller. The board will consider comments if the form has been signed. The task of choosing the next superintendent is a responsibility of the board as representatives of the community. The board appreciates and seeks input of staff and community in the process. While the board is not seeking recommendations as to which individual should be hired, they are seeking your input as to the strengths and concerns about each of the candidates. Please keep in mind the issues the board will use as a basis for their hiring decisions. They are printed on the bottom of the form. Also, keep in mind this form is considered a public document when received by the Board of Education. With that, we will begin the questions. Again, welcome back. Welcome to the audience members. Thank you. We appreciate your interest. And we have the same questions will be asked of each of today's candidates, and each board member has been assigned a specific question. I have the first question, Ms. Martin. Okay. Charter and cyber schools are becoming increasingly prevalent in Michigan. Do you see an opportunity for traditional public schools to partner with either such program? How would you approach the concept, and what drawbacks or benefits do you see?
Okay. First, thank you for having me back a second time. I'm privileged to be here with you this morning. Charter schools, cyber schools, private schools all have the same goal, and that is educating children. We need to work together in a lot of regards to maximize our resources and afford our children the opportunity to be successful. The cyber school piece is becoming increasingly prevalent in this area. I do think we should have more monitoring and or accountability for some of the cyber programs that are in existence today. Unfortunately, I just heard on the news last week where a young lady went through a program, received her diploma, and then found out 2 years after when she applied to college that her diploma was not valid. So I do think there needs to be increased accountability on cyber programs and on some of on some of our charters in that regard. They need to be held to the same standard, the same high expectations as that of our public institutions. However, we do need to recognize that many of our children are going to these locations, and I don't look at them as competition, because if we create the best school system, there will be no competition. All of our families should return back to our public school institutions. The charter schools, I work with a lot of them as it relates to the state and federal grant programs that I operate, and they come in, and the private school as well, and they all want the title dollars until they realize what they have to do, the accountability pieces that they must adhere to, the school improvement pieces, and then they all shy away from it. All of us must be accountable, not only to utilize those state and federal dollars, but to implement programs with fidelity for our students. And again, going back to the accountability piece as it relates to the programs. I do see us integrating some things, for example, with credit recovery programs. Much of that can be done on, I don't really like to use the term cyber programs, but done on the internet. You have the E2020, you have the APEX programs, but it can also be used for accelerated learning and not just credit recovery. So I do see there being a place for online programs, not completely replacing that of a teacher. You definitely need the teacher to be the facilitator to help guide the student. If a student is already struggling in a day-to-day operations, in a day-to-day classroom where they're able to collaborate with their peers, it's going to be virtually impossible for them to gain that same amount of knowledge or increased knowledge sitting in front of a computer screen all day, every day. However, our children are driven toward technology, and they use social media and those other pieces. I believe that we can integrate those things into our public school system and not have isolated pods of charter, cyber, etc.
Thank you.
I have the next question. This is a scenario.
Okay.
You're having a town hall meeting involving the closing of a loved program or a building due to a district redesign, and community members or a member ask or make an irate comment about or to you. How would you handle the situation?
First, maintaining professionalism at all times, maintaining composure and speaking in a calm and respectful voice to that individual. When you deal with programs that are near and dear to individuals' hearts, the emotions will always run very high. I referenced in my last interview the piece of educating our community. Having our community share a part in the decision-making process of which programs we have to shut down, of which consolidations must occur to be fiscally responsible and to be a healthy environment. And once you involve the stakeholders in that process and they have a better understanding as to why programs are subject to being dismantled, you lessen the opportunity for the irate or the high emotions at the town hall meetings. But you have to always be prepared for that and always being respectful to the individual, allowing that person to come back and meet with you after the town hall meeting so that you can address their questions at that given time, letting them know that you are transparent in the decision-making process, letting them know that their voice is being heard, respected, and that you answer their questions that they may have as it relates to that decision that was being made.
Mr. Thied, will you please do Ms. Funderburg's question?
She's on her way.
Okay, I
Sure.
figured
Move on to
maybe,
mine.
and then we'll have her do yours. That's fine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Another scenario for you.
Okay.
A new study shows that a particular strategy or action would greatly increase student math scores across the district. Describe the strategies you would use to launch this new program.
Well, first we need to check the validity and reliability of the study that says this math program is working well, because what works well for one group of students may not work well for our students. So we need to make sure that this math program is a good match for our children to begin with. Secondly, we need to look at the cost of implementing the program, because our staff, our teachers, everyone on board needs to understand what the program is, and they need to have professional development training and ongoing support to implement the program. And they need to implement with fidelity. You have to provide them with all of the necessary tools and support to be successful. You also have to monitor, inspect what you expect. You have to be in the buildings, walking through, working with the teachers to see what challenges they face as it relates to the new program you're looking to implement. And also be courageous enough to, during the evaluation process, make a decision along the way at checkpoints. Is this program really beneficial? Are our children learning in the manner that the study said that they would. A lot of the work has to be done on the front end before we invest the thousands of dollars in the program, because unfortunately what we do as educators, we buy programs because we heard it was great, and now we're stuck with this project or this program or these textbooks because it was the latest and greatest. So a lot of research on the front end to see if this program would be most effective for our children, then providing our staff with a lot of professional development and support, then the evaluation process to determine, are we receiving the results from this program? And if it's not, being courageous enough to end the program before it goes too far and cause too much of a discrepancy with our children in their educational track.
Thank you.
You want to take Danielle's and she take mine?
I don't know. He just did Danielle, so I was going to have her do his, but let's get her situated. So you can go ahead with yours, Cheryl, and then I'll do
You do
hers.
mine, and then she'll do.
And then she'll go back to John.
Okay. What would you do to increase student achievement and move our district from the bottom 9% into the top 9% of the schools in the state?
Now you're speaking my language. Increase student achievement. First, I do strongly believe that every child should have an individual educational plan, because no two children are the same. Even identical twins still have some differences. And to determine what each student needs to be successful is very important. There are a lot of tools that I have in my kit as it relates to identifying strengths and weaknesses of students, and then providing them with the resources to be successful, providing our staff with the resources to help the children to become successful. A lot of it has to do with relationships and high expectations. Children will perform to your level of expectation when they know that you care. There's an old cliche that says they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that is really true of our students. They want to know that you care, and they want to feel safe and secure in asking questions and asking for help, and knowing who to go to receive that help. Who is truly here to serve as my advocate? If I'm struggling in an area that's not necessarily academics, who can I reach out to? That's so important, to have the whole community piece to wrap around our children to support them, because a lot of times the academic deficits our children face are not directly related to academics. It's related to some outside factor that's pulling at our children. So the relationship piece and understanding our children, and then providing the necessary resources to help them become successful. I was just looking at an article that came out last week in the Wall Street Journal, and the LA Unified School District is looking to change their discipline policy as it relates to willing defiance. And all school districts for a number of years said zero tolerance, we're going to put all the children out. Well, for every suspension, that increases the possibility of a student dropping out of school. So looking at the behavioral issues, the discipline issues, the attendance, and then triangulating all of that data to determine what our students need to be successful. Once we provide all of those wraparound supports, while keeping high levels of expectations. Yes, we know that you're going through these factors. We are going to provide you with the necessary supports to be successful, to overcome these barriers. And sometimes it's more than just educating the student. It's educating the entire family, bringing the families in for math nights, reading nights, sometimes just going out to the family's home, reaching out into the community, and helping involve them in the process of the child's education. Then also, as it relates to looking at our data, determining why our data is the way that it is, and being in the bottom 9%. As I indicated before, the high school redesign that I did in the past 3 years, we were in the bottom 5%, and then within 1 year, we had moved up to the 8%. And within 3% within a year is a significant amount of growth. And we looked at all of the, not only standardized assessments, but we looked at formative and summative assessments. We implemented short cycle assessments and really drilled down to where our areas of concern were, and then worked on those specific strands. You can teach all day long, but if you don't know the specific area that our children struggle, you're not going to be successful in what's evaluated on the standardized assessments. So really drilling down to look at our data and triangulating that data to determine our next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Funderburg, if you could pass the question on page 2 that's under John's name, and get you to switch. Thank you.
Right there.
Well, I just want to make sure it wasn't.
Good
Hi, Ms.
morning.
Martin. Good morning. Considering that we have just submitted a deficit budget, what would be your 3-year plan for the revolutionizing of our district?
3-year plan. Well, the first thing is getting all of our families and children back to our district where they belong. The latest enrollment trends state that we have 1,500 children, school-age children right now, that are not enrolled in Romulus Community Schools, and we need to bring all of our babies back home. And the only way that we can do that is by going out into the community, sharing our success, sharing our innovative programs, and the strategies that we have in place through our strategic plan, through our school improvement plans to increase student achievement, to have the trust of our families to combat the care and concern for all of our children. So those pieces will generate additional revenue because our children would be home where they belong. The other piece is looking at living within our means, streamlining our process, having a lot of community conversations, having conversations within our staff. I mentioned last time we developed a process through zero-based budgeting where the school improvement teams look at their building budget on a monthly basis to determine if the building expenditures are actually in alignment with their school improvement goals and are resulting in student achievement. And if those items are not, reevaluating that. When a school district has to look at what to eliminate, you have to protect the thing that we're here for, that being student achievement. So you have to look at all of the external pieces first, the capital outlay, the excess perhaps in custodial costs, and I don't mean salaries, I mean in terms of the supplies that we're using. Can we join a consortium and purchase in mass quantity for a lower cost versus purchasing individually, going through RIMC to purchase mass supplies for the classroom, those type of things. Also looking at reducing costs as it relates to professional development. I looked at research recently that said for a staff of 53 to participate in 15 days of professional development, we pay approximately $75,000. Well, going back to integrating some of the cyber components, we can have some online PD versus always bringing someone in or sending our staff out, and the staff would have the flexibility of reviewing the professional development at their leisure, at home, in the evenings, and they can go back to revisit those pieces. To give you the dollars and cents of that, that would cost approximately $15,000 for 15 days of professional development versus the $75,000. So looking at ways that we can streamline what we're doing while maintaining the high quality education, professional development, and learning environments that our children are functioning in. But it's an ongoing conversation. It never ends, as is school improvement. You can't say, these are the cuts we're making, let's move forward from there. You have to look at those cuts and determine, were these the appropriate cuts for our students? Are they still able to perform? Or do we need to change our course of action? Thank you.
Ms. Bowe?
Give me 1 second. Good morning.
Good morning.
My question is, the trend data has indicated that Romulus enrollment takes a sharp decline from elementary to middle school. With this information, what would be your plan to address this decline in enrollment, and what would you do to change the perception that the elementary parents have of our middle school?
You always give me the perfect lead-in questions. The trend with students leaving after the elementary level is not unique to Romulus. It is something that is happening throughout our state. There's a safety perception, first and foremost, at the middle school. Middle school happened to be my favorite grades to work with. Always exciting, never a dull moment, because they didn't understand what they were going through each day, let alone the parents understand. So those who knew me during my time as a middle school principal knows how much I enjoyed that time. But the first thing is, our parents need to understand that it is a safe environment. Clean, safe, and healthy, first and foremost, when it comes to not only our middle school, but to all of our school buildings. So getting out into the community and letting them know that. Having things in the school, inviting them in, allowing the building to be used for outside organizations. for parents to come in for different events to see what's happening in our schools, to partner with our media and get our things published, all the great things that our students are doing, published in the paper and featured on the news. Last time I also mentioned that on NPR we had our conflict resolution featured. So those pieces are very important, but not only spreading the word on a local level, but spreading it on a larger scale. After I visited with you last time, I went back to learn that the U.S. Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, was coming in to visit our early childhood program. That's what I mean by getting it out on a larger scale. People all the way to Washington need to know the great things that we're doing here, and we are the ones that have to tell that story. No one else is going to tell that for us, because other districts are competing for students as well, so they're going to go out and tell their story. We have to be responsible for that. The other piece is looking at, again, not just individualized instruction, but the strengths of our students and the strengths of our community. One of the things I did in my current role was break the high school down and break the middle school down into small learning communities to individualize instruction and to afford the teachers the opportunity to build strong relationships with the students. At the middle school level in particular, we broke it into a STEM academy, which is a project-based learning academy. It was based on application, but the application was merely an interest application and a commitment to the program. Being that it was a totally different program, we asked the parents to give 1 year's commitment before they wanted to withdraw their child and put them into one of the other small learning communities. And we had a waiting list. We actually had to conduct a public lottery for that program. And a lot of that had to do with the relationships that the students were able to build with the staff during that time. And they stayed with them for the 2 years or 3 years, depending on the age group of the middle school. It gives the teachers the opportunity to get to know them in the first year. And then the second year, you're not starting all over. You already know what I need support in. You already have those resources available to me. And now I can hit the ground running and stay successful and accelerate my learning versus having to remediate along the way.
And I have the last question. Where do you see yourself 6 years from now?
6 years from now. Well, let's start with 6 weeks from now. 6 weeks from now, I see myself being the superintendent of Romulus Community Schools. 6 years from now, I see us having to schedule appointments for people to come in and find out how we were successful in turning around our school district and becoming a world-class institution and wanting to learn from the process that we adhered to from day one to the 6-year mark. I will finish my doctorate December of 13, hopefully, if everything goes according to plan. That's what I plan to defend, and so that's on a personal level. But I'm a lifelong learner, so I will probably be enrolled in someone's program or taking a course online to stay current with the trends in education. But again, I see myself in the classrooms with the students. I see myself doing a lot of the same things I do today. It is very, very important to me now, just as it was 20 years ago when I decided to leave the classroom, that I must stay connected to the students and I must stay connected to the families. So on a personal level, I will still be doing that 6 years from now. However, I see people coming in and looking at what we've done over the last 6 years to become a world-class institution.
Thank you.
A couple of questions for you.
The question here, Ms. Martin, is how will you involve teachers' input when it comes to decisions about programs and curriculum?
Okay. There are several ways that I currently involve the teachers for input. There are often times that I go out and recruit individuals. I spend a lot of time doing building walkthroughs, looking at teachers' data, and then inviting individuals to serve on various committees without them volunteering. The other way is by extending the invitation and allowing an open invitation for individuals who are interested to participate in those various committees. The other way, I created Google Sites for my school improvement teams where we can communicate via the internet on a consistent basis on the things that they are looking to do and providing them the resources and then also allowing them to serve. We also have thought partners, and the thought partner process, there's one assigned to every building, and you literally go in during the school improvement meetings, faculty meetings, data team meetings, and you have open dialogue with the teachers, with the custodians, with the secretaries. Everyone is a member of the team, so I very rarely isolate a specific group because everyone has involvement in the process. There are some curriculum pieces that the cafeteria staff needs to be involved in because what they serve the children has an impact on their performance. So involving all the stakeholders, not just the teachers, either through open invitation, through select invitation, through their staff meetings, through town hall meetings, key communicators meetings, just a variety of opportunities for us to have ongoing dialogue. Also doing classroom visits, not to say I got you or I'm here to examine what you're doing, but I'm just here to get feedback. I'd like to see how you're interacting with your students. I'd like to see if the curriculum materials we are using are most effective, and if they're not, then we need to sit down and have a conversation about that. Teachers, all staff need to understand that it's a safe environment, and if they have a concern, they can approach you with that concern, and without fear of repercussion for approaching you.
Thank you. What are your views on value-added measurements to determine teacher effectiveness?
Well, the state has yet to adopt a model as it relates to teacher evaluation, and I know many districts are leaning towards Marzano or Danielson or some hybrid of both. But as it relates to value added, it's everyone needs to have personal goals to adhere to, and there needs to be some type of standardization as it relates to that. So I'm in favor. I just don't know to what extent the individual districts will do that, or the state leveling the playing field across the board. I'll give you a perfect example. Currently, I'm going through a process of unifying 2 school districts, and we know that evaluation is very subjective. Well, you have one school district that was very honest in their evaluation process, and many of the teachers were rated effective, but not highly effective. And actually was, the state came in and said, this is a true reflection based on the scores that we're receiving. It would appear that some of your teachers fall here, some of your teachers fall there. And then you have a second school district who rated everyone highly effective. It makes you question the accuracy of that evaluation. So there does need to be some measure that we hold everyone accountable for as it relates to value added.
And the last one that I have here is, as superintendent, how do you plan on involving teachers and the Education Association in decisions that impact teachers and students?
The Education Association and teachers, they're always involved in every process that you have. As I said before, not only the teachers group, but all groups that you have in the organization. They're always involved. They always have a seat at the table. Now, there are some very isolated instances where you cannot have everyone at the table to make a decision. Those would involve some things such as immediate safety, imminent danger, those type of things, where you have to make a decision in isolation to protect the students, to protect the organization. Other than that, you always invite the individuals to the table to have a conversation. I think anyone that works with me now from any level of the organization will tell you I always listen to what they have to say, acknowledge their thoughts, and ask for feedback. You brought me a problem. Let's sit down and discuss some possible solutions. Perhaps you have a solution that I've not thought of. I'm willing to explore those things with you to determine what's best for the organization moving forward. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree. However, I will respect all voice in the organization as well as the voice of the stakeholders. It's a community school district. It's not the superintendent's school district.
Thank you. We now go into your closing statement.
Do I get to ask questions? Oh, no questions today? Oh, darn. Okay. Well, again, I'd like to thank you for having me back a second time. What you will find in Jennifer Martin, you will find someone that truly believes in best practices of leadership, someone who models the way and sets a standard by which we hold all stakeholders accountable, by which we welcome everyone to the organization, by which we value and respect everyone in the organization. Someone who inspires a shared vision. I believe that I can change education. And generally, those around me feel that same passion after a short amount of time. And as a result, they work extremely hard to believe that they too can change education. We had an outstanding school system years ago, and I don't just mean this local school district. Public schools were exemplary. We can get back to that standard. The problem is we've allowed ourselves to get stuck in 20th century education, and now we have to move from 20th century to 21st century and beyond. As I indicated before, we don't know what the future holds for our children. Someone that encourages the heart. There have been times, as of late, with all the changes we're going through in our district, where I've gone out to the buildings and just said to a teacher, if you need to step out of your classroom for 15 minutes because of all of the stress that we're under, I'll cover your class. I'll come in and sub for you. I've told my principals, if you need a day off, I'll be your substitute for the day and come in to ensure that the children are taken care of. But then I'm also someone who challenges the status quo. I'm always looking for something innovative and exciting to keep our children engaged in the learning process and to make the institution a better place, not only for the children, but for all. The staff should be excited to come to work every day. The students should be excited to come and learn. And the parents should know that their children are safe and well taken care of while they're in our presence. Also, and this is my final statement, I'm a courageous leader. There are times that you will make decisions that someone is not happy with, be it the irate comment at the town hall meeting, be it the threat of someone posting something about you online, be it the threat of contacting MDE to try to set up a whistleblower case. You cannot be fearful in your leadership. You have to adhere to the standards set forth by the Board of Education, and you have to move accordingly. You always have to maintain your professionalism without fear of repercussions for those decisions. So courageous leadership is something else that you will find in Jennifer Martin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Board of Education, I want to thank you for your interest in Romulus schools. The board will make a decision about the superintendent vacancy, and you will be notified as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, does anyone need a break before we? Thank you. Thank you. You gotta wait for Paula.
Thank you. Yeah, we gotta wait. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, that's right. The next one's we are in.
Thank you.
We are in recess until 10:15. Good morning. We are back in session at 10:16 a.m. Good morning. On behalf of the Romulus Schools Board of Education, I'd like to welcome Dr. Paula Daniels back to the process. Dr. Daniels is currently the interim superintendent at Romulus. I'll take a few minutes to describe our format this morning. The interview may take up to 30 minutes. There will be an opportunity for candidates to make a closing statement. Our MASB representative will be our timekeeper and will keep us aware of the time remaining. Superintendent interview feedback forms and question cards are available for the audience to complete and are located on the table in the back. The question cards will be picked up during the interview, and please give the completed feedback forms to the board secretary or to Ms. Miller. The board will consider comments if the form has been signed. The task of choosing the next superintendent is a responsibility of the board as representatives of the community. The board appreciates and seeks input of staff and community in this process. While the board is not seeking recommendations as to which individuals should be hired, we are seeking your input as to the strengths and concerns about each of the candidates. Please keep in mind the issues the board will use as a basis for their hiring decisions. They are printed at the bottom of the form. Also keep in mind this form is considered a public document when received by the Board of Education. Again, welcome. I have the first question. Charter and cyber schools are becoming increasingly prevalent in Michigan. Do you see opportunity for traditional public schools to partner with either such program? How would you approach the concept, and what drawbacks or benefits do you see?
Well, as we all know, the landscape of public education has absolutely changed. And cyber schools and charter schools are a new definite part. So I see that as a public school entity, we would do ourselves a disservice not to look into the possibilities of providing some of those types of services. One of the questions that was asked at the previous interview was my thoughts on what the school or the classroom of tomorrow would look like. Cyber schools and charter schools are what the district of today and tomorrow are going to look like. Some of the most positive things that we can look at is it provides different types of opportunities, a variety of offerings that we might be able to provide for our students in our community. You can look at not only the cyber schools and the charter schools, but specialty schools, and sometimes a charter school can become a specialty school. You know, you find science and industry schools or arts schools. Even a Montessori type format is another possibility that might be one that we could do through a charter school. Cyber school, our kids are there anyway, so offering those types of opportunities, you know, is absolutely a possibility. Some of the drawbacks, you know, might be that we are going to have to make sure that we bring community and staff along to really understand what the benefits of those types of formats might be. Making sure that we understand financially how that will impact us, either for the positive or if it will be a negative impact, and making sure that we keep ourselves in a position where we remain stable. One of the things that we've done in the district is partnered with the program where we have students who are homeschooled. So it's not like we're just locked into one way to do something. So we absolutely, you know, don't ever want to just close our ears to the possibility of looking into the alternative ways that we can provide the education service for our students in our community.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Daniel, I have the next one. It's a scenario.
Okay.
It says, as a district, we're having a town hall meeting involving the closing of a loved program or building due to a district redesign. And community member or members asked where they make an irate comment about or to you in regards to the district. How would you handle the situation?
Well, first I'd just make sure that I listen, you know, very carefully and get an understanding of what the concern is. Because when, you know, when we become irate ourselves, or if we encounter others who are, we want to make sure that we understand how that got to be. Sometimes it's because people feel they have not been heard. Sometimes it's out of fear. Sometimes it's because of a lack of understanding of something. So it becomes extremely important to listen and try to get as much information as you can. When people come after you, you know, in an attack, it's so important just to step back and try not to take it personally and hear. You need to then assess, are the things that they're saying, is there merit to what their concerns are? Is it something that, you know, you have really done that, you know, you need to go back and take a look at and perhaps modify? And you need to be quick to say, you know what, you're right, let me go back and try to see what we can do with this. If it's something that's out of your control, you still listen and you still respect. Because people are operating sometimes out of emotion and from their hearts. So you always want to give them the respect and the understanding that you can. Once you've come out of the volatile situation of that moment, it's important to follow up with that person. Because then when the height of the emotion is gone, or eased, should I say, it's at that point that perhaps you can get to what really is going on and what are some of the solutions that you can really come up with. But as I said, it's important to just, you know, listen, respect, and then as much as you can, do whatever you can to help whatever the situation that's caused them the concern.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Dr. Daniels.
Good morning.
Mine's a scenario also.
Okay.
A new study shows that a particular strategy or action would greatly increase student math scores across the district. Describe the strategies you would use to launch this new program.
First of all, we make sure that we have all of the information about the program. Then we would pull in our key leadership team and that would include administrators, but teaching staff to come in and really have an opportunity to take a look at it. In addition to looking at the strategy, we also want to look at what our specific needs have been so that we can start to build and show how this strategy appears, according to the research, to be something that can help with our, to fulfill our need in that area. The next thing then would be to start to roll it out to staff and help them understand, and including what our need is, what the strategy is, what the research has shown, if there are any school districts in the area who are using the program, set up some times for our staff to go take a look at it, and so that they can actually see it in operation. Because sometimes when you read about it, you get one idea, and you may or may not think it's going to work, but when you actually have an opportunity to go take a look at it, then you can really see, and it can become real for you. Then really help get the input from the staff. What are some of the concerns that they might have based upon what they've seen? And then try to make sure that we can set in place supports that will help address the concerns that they have. Provide extensive professional development up front so that they can have the opportunity to learn what it's about, see what it looks like, and then ongoing to make sure that we're able to maintain it. And then the checkpoints that will help us evaluate and make sure that we're getting the results that the project says we should be, or that the program or strategy says that we should be.
Thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
I have your next one.
Okay.
Considering that we just submitted a deficit budget, what would be your 3-year plan for revolutionizing our district?
That's something that stays on the minds of many educators right now. And for us, some of the key things that we need to remember is funds coming in and funds going out. So, one, we want to make sure that our revenue goes up. That can go up in a number of ways. It can go up through, additional students that we have to generate funds. It can go up through, different grants. We're constantly, looking for different types of grants. It may come through realigning some things that we do so that we're not spending quite so much. It might come from ways that we have not thought of with the team that we've been working on, so therefore it becomes very important as a part of, generating the revenue to get the input from other stakeholders, not just educators, but community members. Sometimes they have contacts that we don't even think about that can help, with that. Another thing then will be, we have to be very mindful of always watching what we spend. No wasteful spending, making sure that the things that we are doing are meeting needs that we have, but not being, wasteful in the spending. We also want to be in a constant state of looking at how we are delivering the services, which might mean, are we at a point where we can consolidate a school or change something? Offering different kinds of programs. We were talking about some of the other types of schools or learning opportunities, and those, can be fund generators and also help us perhaps reconfigure what we already have to make it more effective for the current day and time. So over the 3 years, what we want to do is start with, constantly looking at what our bottom line is, and then setting the goal. Where do we want to be? What do we want to try to bring in? What do we want to try to have come in as a part of our offerings that will help, and it's not just about generating the revenue, but it's about providing learning opportunities for children that children and parents want. and that will help them come and be with us. It's going to mean making sure that we, and I've stated before, stay in close contact with the Department of Education, so that as we're working through our plan, we're sure that we're not getting off in any way, that they can provide, support and input, from their side. Sometimes they can give some recommendations. Our auditors, are another who can sometimes give recommendations on different things that we can do. But, monthly, the Department of Ed is going to be checking what we're doing. We're going to be doing it weekly to make sure of how things are going. And at every point that we see where we can increase our savings or what we're bringing in, we want to make sure that we do that. And by having those short checkpoints, that will give us an opportunity to kind of do that and not be so far down the road before we say, oh, we should have. No, we will have done it right there. It's kind of like when you think of a GPS system. If you start to get off, it immediately starts to recalculate how you need to get back on. That is what we'll be looking at. If we start to get off, pull it right back on. And then, how you can either set it to go the most expedient way to get someplace, or the way without highways, or the way without, roadblocks or anything. What we're going to be setting ours for, we're going to be looking at two things. One, we want to make sure that we can do it in an expedient fashion, but we also want to do it in a way where we maintain the integrity of our academic program. Because if we get someplace fast and we've decimated our program, we still lose. So, that's kind of the overview, but another piece will be also to make sure that we continue to keep everyone informed on how we're doing, and that means not only the board, but the community, the staff, everybody, so that as we're going through, if they come up with ideas, they'll be able to provide that input. Because the only way we're going to do this and do it well and do it so that we are permanently out of debt is to do it together.
Thank you. I'm next. What would you do to increase student achievement and move our district from the bottom 9% into the top 9% of the schools in the state?
Some things we're already trying to do. We do a good job of trying to take a look at the data. What is it telling us? Why are we in a bottom, or why are we in a certain place? What is it really saying to us? Burrowing down in to see specific areas that we are in need. Taking a look at programs that we are using and strategies that we're implementing, trying to determine, are they effective? One of the things that we're going to be doing this week coming up is a program evaluation. And in that process, we look at programs, and in checking for effectiveness, we're checking for a number of things. Is it a program? Are we getting the results that we want? If we're in a lower rung, we're obviously not. Is it something that we haven't given it enough time yet? Is it something that we're not doing with fidelity? Everyone is not really being consistent in using a certain strategy. We don't have all of what we need to go along with it. Once we've made those kinds of determinations, then that can help us decide whether we want to keep a given program or not. If we find that it has not worked and we've done everything that we should, then we go back to the research and we take a look and see what are those areas that have us at the bottom and what do we have to specifically address. Then, once we've identified all of that and we found a strategy, then it's going to be real important for everybody to know where we're trying to go. Kids need to know, this is where we are and this is where we're trying to go. Parents need to know, this is where we are and this is where we're trying to go. Staff need to know, this is where we are and this is where we're trying to go. The community needs to know, this is where we are and this is where we're trying to go. So that then everyone can start to provide some support in whatever way that they may be able to do. It could be a half an hour math works every night. So wherever you are at 7:30, you're going to do something in math, or you're going to do Everybody's going to read for a half an hour, no matter where you are. But in doing that, collectively coming together, that will, one, help everyone start to understand the importance of it, because sometimes we don't do things because we really don't understand how it's going to impact us. We don't know why it's important. But if everybody starts really trying to move in the same direction, then that will help give us some strength and some steam. We then need to continue to go back and see how are we doing. We have a number of assessments that we use in the district so that we can monitor our progress. You know, MEEP is that one time a year snapshot that really is not a useful teaching tool, because we need to know what needs to be taking place at every point as we go along. So the assessments that we will be using will show, are we starting to move up? If not, if we get to a point and maybe we're moving and we hit a plateau, what's going on that our kids don't seem to be moving? Oh, it's November, December. Guess what? All these other kinds of things are going on in school. Their minds were not necessarily right on that. So we're going to red flag that, because then when we come back and have another assessment in February, we should see where there's been a movement. If there hasn't been, then we need to go back and look at what our strategies are, what are the practices that we're doing, where do we need to make some modifications. Staff will come together and take a look, but also always talk to kids. Kids are one of the ones that we often leave out of the equation. We don't come back and ask them, what do you think? What can I do to help you? What can I do to help you? What do you think? What would you like to see me do to help you be successful? Because that's our goal, is to help kids be successful. We're here to help them, because given to their own devices, they're gonna move anyway. We're just trying to guide them and help them reach the levels that we want to. So we want to make sure that we do monitoring. We want to make sure that and consistent monitoring. We want to make sure that we are providing the types of activities and programs and strategies that will really impact what kids need in order to learn, students. And then we want to make sure that we keep all of the stakeholders a part of the process.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My question is, the trend data has indicated that Romulus enrollment takes a sharp decline from elementary to middle school. With this information, what would be your plan to address this decline in enrollment, and what would you do to change the perception that the elementary parents have of our middle school?
One of the things that, as you do research, you'll find that there's often a decline, not only in Romulus, but across the board, from schools, from the students going from elementary to that middle school, junior high school level. One of the things that's always necessary is to find out why our parents not going on. So that means actually getting out and talking to parents, and I just don't mean for us would be fifth grade parents, but talk to fourth grade parents, talk to third grade parents, because they're starting to think, you know, junior high's coming up, middle school's coming up, what am I going to do? But what are some of their concerns? You know, also we want to find out, what did you like about elementary school? What did you like about that? And what do you feel you're going to lose by going to our middle school that you did like in the elementary school? Sometimes it's just a perception. Sometimes it's really not something that's going to be different, but you don't know that. The middle school student is a very wonderful student, and I love middle school teachers coming and going, because you have to be a special kind of a person to really be effective in a middle school. Because that middle school child is in that transition into starting to become an adult. And for those of you who have the middle school students at home, you know kind of what I'm talking about. They start to feel themselves a little bit. So for the staff, you know, I take my hat off to them, because they really try to work with those students. But in order for us to make sure that parents know that, we have to provide opportunities for them to step in. We do some things in the district already. We have some transition activities where fifth graders go over, you know, to the middle school and have some activities, where they have family nights at the middle school, where sixth or fifth grade parents and families are invited to come. We're working on expanding some things, and some of those include having some of the middle school students come back to their feeder schools and talk about what's going on. In some of the schools, they actually have articles in the elementary newsletter about things going on at the middle school. One of the things that will be very important, though, is getting in contact with the parents, and also parents from the middle school. Let middle school parents talk to elementary school parents, and talk about the good things that are going on. Having those opportunities for the students to come together and do things together, where they start building friendships and bonds and remembering those who were there with them in the elementary school before, but who've gone on, and not just towards the end of the year, which is often what we do, but periodically during the whole course of the year. The middle school has a great leadership team that do all kinds of great things, and one of the things that we're wanting to do is to see if we can have an opportunity for them to come out to the elementary schools. But then have sometimes have some of the parent meetings from the individual schools at the middle school, maybe having some big collective ones where we can talk about what are some of the things that we'd like to see, and ask parents what would help you, what would help alleviate some of your concerns from going to any one of the levels, from elementary to middle, from middle to high school. What are some of the kinds of things that we can do to help you with that, to help you know that we've got great things going on? And getting their input will be critical, and then implementing the strategies and some of the ideas that they provide for.
I have the last question.
Okay.
Where do you see yourself 6 years from now?
You mean if the rapture doesn't happen and we're all gone? 6 years. Okay, I think I'd like to start and take it in parts. In 3 years, I see myself being a part of a district who has successfully come out of deficit in a manner that we become a model for others. Strong, having implemented things to help us become even more resilient in these trying times that we face. But a prime example of what can happen when schools and community come together and really work together and do what's good for students. That's what I see in 3 years. 3 years out from there, I see still being a part of the community, the education community, and if not necessarily as the leader, one who is there to help cultivate new leadership, because I think that's going to be imperative for the survival and the strength of the district, is to be in a constant state of developing new leaders. If you recognize what your strength is, sometimes your strength is what's needed at the very front, but then sometimes your strength becomes what's needed to help support someone else. So depending on what's being called for, or where the positioning would be, the ultimate thing that I would see in the 6 years is continuing to ensure, being a part of that team who's continuing to ensure that Romulus Community Schools is the flagship of school districts for the state of Michigan and for the nation.
Okay.
A couple of questions.
Couple of minutes.
Yep, maybe look at one or two.
Questions from the audience. Currently, teachers in Romulus Community Schools do not have opportunities to collaborate with other teachers within our district. What will you do to ensure that that happens?
Well, we have to take a look at the times that we have available. We're in a point where we don't have a whole lot of money. So, we'd like to be able to pay for extra time, when they can come together. But we have some professional development time and, building in during some of those professional development offerings and having opportunities to collaborate. We have early release times. Perhaps we can take a look at what some of the agendas for those times include, and we might be able to build in opportunities when staff can collaborate. If we can find money, and like I said, we're always looking for finances and ways to help supplement what we are providing. If we ever can find money, doing some kinds of activities, and the one thing that I would want it to become is something that's a consistent opportunity. So that's where we would look at, some of the already existing venues that we have, like on some of those early release days or professional development days. But beyond that, just providing forums when, be it by building level or, vertical teams are very important. And over the last year, we really have not had an opportunity to get good vertical teams in, where we meet across grade levels and across schools, because that's important to have those bridges where staff talk, elementary staff talk to middle school and middle school talk to high school, staff, so that we can all get a good view of what the landscape is and where we need to go. But trying to, fit it in the best that we can, because I do understand that that's a critical need and it's something that would be a priority.
Thank you. With the board's concurrence, I'm going to go ahead and ask these next two questions, but we you might want to tighten your answers so that it gives you an opportunity for a closing statement. Okay. The next, what are your views on teacher evaluations, and specifically, how do you feel value-added measures factor in?
I think teacher evaluations should be a tool that's used to help teachers improve, so that what we provide for students is as at the top quality. Teacher evaluations should come to help make us better. I'm not one who believes in I gotcha. So whatever comes should be to help strengthen teachers, and I think through an evaluation, that's one of the ways that happens. In addition to that, making sure that everyone knows all the rules to the game so that there are no surprises, particularly for it. The value add, I think that it has merit. I'm not satisfied at this point that we've done enough research on it to really know how to implement it in a way that it does not become punitive, but it truly accomplishes what those who are proponents of it, that it really accomplishes what they would want.
And the last one is, as superintendent, how do you plan on involving teachers and the Education Association in decisions that impact students and teachers?
Well, I would like to, in other places where I've worked, we've had like an administrative council, and included on that met regularly. We had representatives from all across the board, many of the stakeholders, educators. And that was a time when you came together, you talked about things, you got things out on the table, suggestions were offered, and plans were set so that everyone could have some input and some knowledge of what was going on and what we were trying to accomplish. And goals were set, based upon some of the things that came out of those meetings.
Thank you. Now would be the time if you have a closing statement or anything you'd like to add.
One thing that wasn't asked, but though that I think is really important, when we're in difficult times like this, one of the things that I think is the most important for everyone at the table is to remember is to always think highly of others, and to keep a good sense of humor. Because a merry heart maketh very good like a medicine. And you'll be surprised how much when you can just have a good sense of humor and kick out with a smile, how much easier it is to deal with difficult situations.
Thank you, and thank you for your interest in the position. The board will make a decision about the vacancy, and you'll be notified as soon as possible. Thank you so much again, Dr. Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are in recess until 11 a.m.
48, no, that's.
Was wedged
Standing out in
in.
the hallway
My
waiting.
air pack, my arms,
You guys
I
ready?
could feel
We
my
all
feet
set?
dangling.
I forgot, I'm sorry.
Good morning. We are reconvened at 11:01 p.m.
AM.
a.m. a.m., sorry.
You don't know what time it is?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. On behalf of the Romulus Board of Education, I'd like to welcome Charles Moncaci back to Romulus. I'll take a few minutes to describe our format this morning. The interview may take up to 30 minutes. There will be an opportunity for candidates to make a closing statement. Our MASB representative will be our timekeeper and will keep us aware of the time remaining. Superintendent interview feedback forms and question cards are available for the audience to complete and are located on the table in the back. The question cards will be picked up during the interview, and please give the completed feedback forms to the board secretary or Mrs. Miller. The board will consider comments if the form has been signed. The task of choosing the next superintendent is a responsibility of the board as representatives of the community. The board appreciates and seeks input of staff and community in this process. While the board is not seeking recommendations as to which individual should be hired, we are seeking your input as to the strengths and concerns about each of the candidates. Please keep in mind the issues the board will use as a basis for their hiring decisions. They are printed on the bottom of the form. Also keep in mind, this form is considered a public document when received by the Board of Education. Again, good morning, welcome.
In the interest of time management, I have a few handouts. I knew that
Thank
it would be
you.
a brief period today. But I've reflected quite a bit.
Good morning, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the last
Thank you.
Okay. Charter, and I have the first question. Each of us has one question.
very good.
Charter and cyber schools are becoming increasingly prevalent in Michigan. Do you see an opportunity for traditional public schools to partner with either such program? How would you approach the concept? What drawbacks or benefits do you see?
Well, I think any time that we can have partnerships, it can be to our advantage. Developing more connections, more relationships only can improve our ability to be a high-quality school system. And as I've included on that first handout, it's titled Acceleration Agenda to Eliminate Achievement Gaps in the Romulus Community Schools. And it's actually an example of a proposed board policy statement, and it includes a plan. And when we decide to come together and work on a common plan together, there's all the potential in the world for us to accomplish great things. And my proposal is that our agenda is to eliminate achievement gaps. Now, however we can do that, it can include, when we talk about cyber, there's a hybrid component with any kind of program that we should be taking advantage of. I just saw the other day with YouTube. YouTube didn't exist before 2005. Today, there's 1 hour of video that goes onto YouTube every second. That's an example of how the world has changed. So, to the degree that which we are able for us to have those connections, partnerships, whether it's with cyber schools, with universities, colleges, as you have with the early college program that is underway here, with charters, with anyone who wants to partner with us. It's a win-win. It's a win-win for all involved.
Thank you.
And at the same time, for the Romulus Community Schools to retain its identity as the urban school district of the future with the highest academic scores of any urban school district in Michigan.
Okay, Dr. McCutcheon, I have a scenario here. You're having a town hall meeting involving the closing of a loved program or building due to a district redesign. And the community asks, or they make an irate comment about or to you, and how would you handle that situation?
Always with humility, dignity, and you must honor anyone who asks a question. Questions are always asked when people are in need of answers, responses. And I'll give you an example of that exact scenario. We combined the middle school with the high school in Mount Clemens, which meant shutting down the middle school and shifting an IB program for all of our middle schoolers over to the high school, which was a 3-story building. It used to have many more students than it had over time. And everyone wasn't pleased, oddly enough. And there was consternation about that. Families were concerned about their children's safety, number one. We made sure that we listened first. We listened deeply. Me leading the way as far as listening deeply. And we made sure that the middle schoolers had the experience of their life on the same campus as the high schoolers. They were in different areas of the building. They had slightly different schedules. They had different lunch periods. They had different entry and exit areas and dismissal times. And it actually worked, I'd like to say perfectly, very close to perfectly. And a year later, I couldn't find anybody that didn't like the idea, because that was the year that our middle school became an IB World School. So it also enabled us to be able to do some other things, because there's always advantages to doing things when you don't even know what the possibilities are sometimes. We were able to have cross-age tutors in the same building, responsible high school students that are in need of developing their portfolios for college, universities, service learning requirements that we had, to be able to, they were steps away from being able to be involved with our young people. So it also improved our academic scores. And so we had some advantages to something that began as, you know, an issue. But it's really how you handle those things.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have the next scenario.
Yes, ma'am.
A study shows that a particular strategy or action would greatly increase student math scores across the district. Describe the strategies you would use to launch this new program.
Is there a particular program?
No, no particular program, but it's a new thing.
What's interesting about this is that I had a conversation with my 22-year-old son about his history of dislike for mathematics, and it was because there wasn't enough hands-on, there wasn't enough connection between math teachers in general and young people. And what really had to happen, which I learned from in previous superintendencies, is that you have to put your plan together, you need to advertise it, and you need to communicate. This is what we are going to do to improve our math scores. I read the district improvement plan a second time, 95 pages. And I understand there are achievement gaps, but that's why I'm proposing the central focus here being the elimination of achievement gaps. And it's not only in math. Math needs to be embedded in the curriculum. English literacy needs to be embedded in the curriculum. We can't teach things in isolation. That is one of the big issues. We need cross-age tutoring. I understand you have a relationship with a couple, like a Wayne County Community College, let me think here. But I know, being a University of Michigan guy, that there's a tremendous tutoring program with that higher ed institution. You take young people that are good in something, and you have them share their skills with kids. You take people from the community that are very good in math. You bring them into the schools and have them share their skills with young people. You have staff members spend what I call externships that have been very successful, 2-3 days with a professional out in the private sector. And in the rural math world, and I have seen some math teachers, because the question is about math, so I'm sticking to the one topic, come back, tear up lesson plans, and shift their approach to teaching math. Math skills build on themselves. Algebra is the key to doing well on the SAT and the ACT. Learning algebraic skills. There are some documents that I'm aware of that are used widely on the East Coast that I would bring here and help with the young people and their ability to learn math at a younger age. Even the report card design, using, do kindergartners learn geometry? Yes, they actually do. But we don't use big words like geometric skills with kindergartners. We need to have that college-ready, career-bound, life-ready language off the bat with young people. So whatever program it is, in whatever major discipline it is, it really goes back to how we communicate the connection between learning and application. So I use the PDSA model, Plan, Do, Study, Act. And, but I work in concert with you, I work in concert with the team of educators that are highly competent here. And we'll get the results because, or if our focus is this.
Morning or afternoon?
Good morning.
Okay. Considering that we have just submitted a deficit budget, what would be your 3-year plan for revolutionizing our district?
One of the other handouts is the DEP. And if you'd like to take a look at it for a second, this may be a bit of a challenge. I could have provided a book on this, but this is also something that I have experience with. The overview of a DEP plan, because it's usually 3 years. The state can approve a 5-year plan, but there's actually 18 tabs involved in a DEP. There are 14 steps, and that's the finer font on the second page. And then the third page is the monthly reconciliation report that's turned into the state. There simply are requirements that must be met when any school district goes into or anticipates being in a deficit, and that's to eliminate that deficit. And on the first page, those numbers there, all the sheets are tools to help plan for those areas. The primary goal in my mind is students and providing services and programs that improve all of our students' ability to be successful. And you'd be surprised when the focus of the district is central, and that's the elimination of achievement gaps, that we can, this doesn't need to happen to Romulus, is what I'm saying.
Thank you. The next question is mine. What would you do to increase student achievement and move our district from the bottom 9% into the top 9% of the schools in the state?
We need to be a team. We need to be a model of a team of people that are so game ready, so focused, so prepared that everybody knows the plan. We can get to a point where we're finishing each other's sentences. Not only board and superintendent, but superintendent and educators, because I'm a big believer in signage. I would love to get off of I-94, for example, and see a sign that says Romulus boys basketball team state champion 2012. Its image, the image of the school district. It can be done through signs. It can also, we need walls that talk. We need a character education program. There's 11 elements to a character education program that can go on a wall. It can go on everyone's wall in the school district. There's a program with Stephen Covey, The Leader in Me, that has the 7 habits of highly effective people. There's also Sean Covey, Stephen Covey's son, the 7 habits of highly effective teenagers. Those habits can go on the wall in every classroom. And again, that would not be something that I would dictate. It would be something that we would talk about. And then there would be a discussion with educators internal to the school district. And the rationale would be, why is this important? Why do we need to come together and decide this is what we're going to be about? We are going to eliminate the achievement gaps. If we eliminate the achievement gaps, Romulus Community Schools will be far higher than in that 9th percentile. The sky's the limit as far as what can be accomplished when everything is focused around how will this eliminate achievement gaps as far as program design, justification, and I'm talking about the metrics that are involved in putting something like this together. It can happen, but we have to have everyone believe that they're valued, that there's ownership in what we are about, that there's then commitment. And you know what? Everyone knows, whether they're directly or indirectly involved, how they tie in to this common focus. And that takes time, takes some time as far as discussion with our students. And we actually need to talk with our students about this, as well as staff, as well as families, as well as other stakeholders in the community. Any one of these questions could be the entire day, but I'm trying to be brief.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My question is, the trend data has indicated that Romulus enrollment takes a sharp decline from elementary to middle school. With this information, what would be your plan to address this decline in enrollment? And what would you do to change the perception that the elementary parents have of our middle school?
There's another handout in there that talks about my first 90 days, the entry plan. And one of the topics in there is media relations. The media needs to know this is what the Romulus Community Schools commitment is to every young person. And these are the results that we will get because we are working together. We are all about improving student achievement and eliminating the achievement gaps. And every child deserves a great teacher every year, every day. But we also need to support and affirm our teaching staff with the resources they need to make sure that they can do the best possible job by working together. The only way something heavy, like this board table, could be lifted up, can any one person lift it up? No. Heavy lifting involves everyone connected. If everyone in this room right now decided, we're going to lift this table up, guess what? It would go up. And that's the kind of commitment that can happen. That's how you help to change the image. It's communication on a regular basis through any number of means. It's a huge investment of time that I've been involved in other places with diverse populations. People have to have hope. And I'm going to expand on that just for a moment. Have any of you heard of a young man by the name of Dalton Sherman from Dallas?
Yeah.
Dallas
You
ISD?
believe in me?
Yes. But he begins with, I believe in me. Do you believe in me? And he's powerful. And he talked in front of 20,000 educators. And he just said, you better be ready for us. There's 145,000 of us that are going to be showing up in your schools next Monday. But do you believe in your colleagues? Do you believe in yourself? Do you believe in our dreams? Do you believe that the young people within the Dallas ISD can all do well in life, be career ready, be college ready, be life ready? That was a 10-year-old fifth grader, and I'm glad that maybe all of you are aware. It's like a 6-minute long video. I like to use videos as motivators. That could be part of a back-to-school convocation. There are a number of others that I've used. The difference between hot water and boiling water is there's 1 degree. 1 degree of difference, 1 degree of improved effort translates into 10 times the result. But we have to believe in each other. We have to have a common desire. And then the results, they don't just drop out of the sky like pixie dust. It'll be the result of everyone's work. And that's a legacy that we all can be proud of.
I have the final question.
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you see yourself 6 years from now?
As the superintendent of the Romulus Community Schools. And that we are well underway. That we're looking back at, my goodness, look at what we talked about 6 years ago. And look at now what we are talking about because of the distance we've traveled. And our enrollment has improved. And people believe because we believe. Because we decided on an important policy that everything revolves around. That we put the effort into making this the best urban school district, the highest achieving urban school district in Michigan. That's where I want us to be in 6 years. And it isn't just because I would be here, it would be because we work together. And why me? That's the other handout. And there are 6 areas. I am a constant collaborator. I listen deeply, just as I've listened to each of your questions. But I listened to the themes that you mentioned when I was here the first time a couple weeks ago. You have to have skills that are based on an experience base where you've seen and been involved in cultivating relationships and connections to cause a school district to become something that no one imagined was possible initially. Inspiring education leader, there has to be understanding of where we're at and where we're headed. Part of that is the 90-day entry plan. Don't change it if it isn't broken. The district improvement plan is very good, but there are elements that can be added. Inclusively engages diverse community. That has to be a proactive way to bring everybody on board, to change image, change perception of what this school district can become. Tireless champion for student-centered results. I am student-centered, I'm principle-oriented, PLE, principle-oriented, and we will get results because we will accomplish great things. And it goes back to, I believe in me. Do you believe in us? Forward-looking trailblazer. We have to seek creative ways to accomplish things that might seem like they have impossible constraints. That's facing everyone, not just Romulus. And then character role model. I have good things on the home front. And it isn't because that there's, just a perfect relationship. My wife would be the first one to say that as long as I listen to her, things go well. And you have to have a sense of humor. You have to have a sense of humor. When you're going through tough times become a lot easier to wade through. And then you're on to, all of a sudden, it's like a swimming pool. You're into, instead of the deep end, you start to see, you know what? Okay, we're going to get out of this deep end, and all of a sudden, the water's here instead of here.
Do we have questions from the audience? Thank you. Question from the audience. How will you, how will you involve teachers in making decisions about district programs and curriculum?
Teachers are absolutely essential. They need to know that they're valued, that their input is important on a regular basis. There are lots of ways, informally and formally, to be able to generate that input. I'm a highly visible superintendent. That's my history. As I mentioned in the first interview, I wrote the viability of visibility for the Michigan School Board Journal. Visibility is extremely important. So if I'm in classrooms, walking in buildings, visiting with staff, complimenting them on their work, there's a way to develop that rapport a lot faster than people imagine, because people see me in a different way. They see me as somebody that, you know what, when I walk into a classroom, the first thing I want somebody to do is, put me to work. I'm not there to just stand and stare. I'm there to help. And then with, school improvement plans, I noticed that some board members, at least officially, are involved, with one of the schools. Wonderful. It's another big time commitment. There are formal structures as far as being involved with the school improvement planning committee, but there are also professional, PLCs, professional learning communities that exist here, and I would hope would continue to be developed even further, that meet on a regular basis. And just as Mike Flanagan, State Superintendent, stopped by at the Wayne Risa board meeting a day or two ago, sort of a surprise, he was just in the area, that'll be me too. And I'm not there to catch people doing something wrong. I'm there to see people working together and to cheer them on, and again, how can I help? What do you need right now? What do you need a month from now? What do you need to get through this next quarter? How can we have this be the best year ever for the Romulus Community Schools and its kids and families? So, lots of ways. Plus, with the 90-day entry plan, I would have an open email to all district employees that would like to meet with me during the summer or during the first 90 days for some time for me to listen about, to understand what that person does. And it's also a time for me to validate their importance to our continued growth and development as the school district of the future.
Thank you. We have time for one more question, then I'll give you a couple moments for closing statement. The question would be, excuse me, what are your views on teacher evaluations, and specifically, how do you feel value-added measures factor in?
Well, I'm a proponent of the Charlotte Danielson model because of its reflective nature. It's nationally approved by national education organizations, and it involves necessary ongoing conversation. Lost art. The ability to spend time. Things like this take time, and that's to talk about professional growth, to talk about the plan for the year, to talk about what that teacher is doing with young people that ties into the elimination of achievement gaps in the Romulus Community Schools. And I believe in teacher growth plans, and it's not a negative. What it is, everybody takes time to talk about in writing and also in conversation the things that are important to them. Does everybody know what every teacher's goals are? 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, you ask me what I'd like to be doing 6 years from now. What does every educator in this school district want to be doing 6 years from now? And what a wealth of knowledge we would have if we spent the time to listen first, 2 ears, one mouth, and then to work together to find common ground. Just as in the school improvement document and the district improvement plan, there's all of the Rick DeFore's information about learning communities. Learning communities only happen when people understand each other, they understand direction, They understand that the walls are talking about what we are about. And you know what? We are improving. Our volunteerism is going up. Our relationships have thickened. Our commitment has deepened. So, and you know, what does that have to do with evaluation? Evaluation is not a negative thing. Superintendents are evaluated too. I don't look at that as a negative thing. It's an important part of our relationship.
Thank you. Did you have closing comments you'd like to?
Well, in the interest of time, my handouts were designed to inform you based on my reflection over the past 2 weeks of the Romulus Community Schools and the part that I can play as your next superintendent. I'm serious about that commitment. I know what I can bring. I know what my belief system isn't made up as I go along. My belief system is really solid. It's in place. I will be a tireless champion for the future of this school district, working with you. We will plan together. We will move forward together. And it doesn't mean we won't have our discussions about things, because that's all part of relationships, just like families. We're a family. The Romulus Community Schools needs to be a family. I'm talking about everyone internal to the schools and everyone external that's in the community that needs to be invited over and over and over. See what we're doing, then make a decision as to whether or not you wish your child to move on here. See where we're headed. Take a look at the information we have that we're putting together now that makes us a viable place for you to spend those important next steps with your children. There's one last comment, and these are always anonymous, these wonderful statements, but somebody told me this once, and I believe this greatly. We believe excellence can be achieved if we care more than others think is wise, risk more than others think is safe, dream more than others think is practical, and expect more than others think is possible. I really appreciate your time this morning. And I hope you have a little time to take a look at the handouts.
Well,
All right.
thank you for your interest in Romulus Schools. The board will make a decision about the superintendent's vacancy, and you will be notified as soon as possible. Thank you again for coming today.
Good. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board, we're going to be in recess for about 3 minutes.